All right. So it's 6:03. So why don't we'll go ahead and get started. So welcome to the third first timers clinic already. It's hard to believe we're approaching that halfway point here on clinics. So today we are going to be talking about everything about the bike. Let's see if I can get this going. Okay, so just a little housekeeping in case you are newer to the program. We have had two clinics already. So the first one being Triathlon 101 and the second one being the swim. And today's the bike. And then there's the rest of the schedule for the rest of the season of the clinics. If you need, all of them are videoed. So if you want to see the videos, you can go ahead and scan the QR code here underneath the G for Live Grit Soars. And that's going to take you to the first timers page. Where you can go to the website that's here. And so all the videos are posted there. This one will be posted in a couple of days if you want a refresher. So the next clinic is going to be the run. And then usually our most popular clinic is the transition that's going to take place in July. So you definitely won't want to miss that. I'm Gillian. Today you are very lucky. You have a very special guest from BFF Bikes who is going to be talking about everything from gear to maintenance. And her name is Jillian, spelled the same way. So, and then we have Coach Chris here, who, if you've watched the other clinics, you've seen him. And he's going to talk about training and community events and just some other general stuff regarding the triathlon. So that's kind of our roadmap for the day. We're going to talk about the course, rules, what to expect the morning of. Then we're going to jump into gear and maintenance. And then Coach Chris will finish us the night off with training and some really cool resources that is out there with Supertri to help you in your bike training. As always, this is for you. So any questions, pop them in the chat. Feel free to, yell them out, whatever it is. If you have a question, somebody else has it. So please, questions about anything bike, even if you have other questions about other aspects, feel free to pop those in. And I know we have Coach Chris will be answering some, and then I'll answer some, and we'll get them all covered. So let's get kicked off. Some great, some of the resources, if you're not part of the First Timers Facebook page, there's the QR code to go to the Supertri First Timers Facebook page, where as we get closer to race day, there's going to be a lot more chatter and questions and conversations from athletes, and then you'll have coaches jumping in and answering wherever where needed. And then Strava, if you're not familiar with Strava, it's a training platform, and we'll talk a little bit about this later in the day, but go ahead and scan that QR code, and there will be a Supertri group that you can join there. The middle QR code is for Live Grit Soars, which I know I've talked about in the past clinics, but I have not gotten in depth around what Live Grit Soars is. So again, my name is Gillian, and I run an organization called Live Grit Soars. And we introduced youth in Chicago to triathlons, using the sport to develop mental and physical strength, as we all do, as we do triathlons. So if you are interested, we are always looking for people to volunteer, all different opportunities, from a volunteer coach to a cheer squad to helping get bikes ready for race day. We have programs all year round. So if you're interested in volunteering, or after you do this triathlon and you love it and want to volunteer to support some Chicago youth in doing it, go ahead, again, scan that QR code. There's all the information there. You can always email me. But I'm very passionate about it. It's a great organization. We have probably have 30 kids doing the kids triathlon and the super sprint this year. So After that shameless plug, let's jump right in. So again, we always start with this. Here's what you signed up for. I know we have super sprinters, sprint, and Olympic distance athletes in the program. So we've talked about the swim, and now we're on the bike. So if you are doing the super sprint, you are going to do 6.2 miles on your bike on that Saturday. If you're the sprint, you're going to be doing 15 miles on the bike on Sunday. And the Olympic, you're doing 24.8 miles on the bike. Okay, and much like the other ones, I'm going to play this very short video about the bike so you can kind of see. The one, after the video, I'm going to talk about a few changes that you'll notice. This is an older video, but let's just kick it off.
Trans-America Chicago Triathlon, the bike course. Chicago offers perhaps the most beautiful and unique triathlon cycling experience in the world. Both sprint and international distance cyclists enjoy an unparalleled tour of Chicago, and it all starts on famed Lakeshore Drive.
As an athlete, it's like you've teleported into another world. And it's this world where everything is great because it's so beautiful out there.
Athletes use the interior 2 lanes of Lakeshore Drive for approximately 7.5 miles until they reach the turnaround at Hollywood Boulevard. It's important to remember the ride left, pass right rule. That is, if you're not too distracted by the beauty.
On your left, you will have the greatest skyline known to man, at least in my opinion. And then on your right, you'll have this big body of water that looks so clear that you never even thought was possible in an urban city. And so talk about enjoying a bike ride. And then to go on Lower Wacker, you know, where Batman was filmed, it's just like you're just transported again, right?
While the sprint distance participants complete their 15 miles exiting to transition at Randolph, the international distance participants exit at Wacker Drive, where the most unique experience in urban triathlon begins. A ride underneath the city, along newly rebuilt and completely traffic-free Lower Wacker, aka the Bat Cave.
It's a tunnel, and it's unique because there's no wind. So when you get up to speed, you just fly down this thing. And that's truly unique. There aren't a lot of underground triathlons, essentially. You even have certain sections where you're riding quasi-underground and spectators are up over the top, over bridges looking down on you. Truly unique.
That's the McCormick Place Busway, Chicago's most secretive and unobstructed expressway. The open-air busway offers spectators a great vantage point as triathletes ride through the heart of Grant Park 15 feet below ground level. From there, athletes head past McCormick Place, then head back north on the busway to Middle Randolph and back to Transition 2, completing a true 40K course. And note, race officials patrol the bike course start to finish, along with bike marshals to aid stranded cyclists, ensuring a fair, safe, exciting, and unforgettable triathlon cycling experience. Trans-America Chicago.
And now I was on mute. So that's a good overview. So if you've, again, never seen the bike course of the triathlon, you just got a perfect picture of it. And I did just see, I think Coach Chris just posted the links to these videos. They did one for each section a couple of years ago, so you can find those all there. So let's talk about the course, starting with the super sprint. So this is on Saturday. And again, it's up at Montrose and Foster Beach. So as we've talked about, the orange box on both of the course maps, that's the transition area. So that's your home base where you come back to before the race, and after the swim, and then after the bike. So we have this orange box right here. For this course, the red line, that is your bike course. And that is on a road, the inner drive there that is closed off. So there will not be any cars. And it is a 3-loop course. So you're going to do the same loop 3 times to get your distance. So the one thing to think about is just making sure you keep track of what loop you're on. And though that sounds very basic, getting in the moment and taking it all in, sometimes actually that's one of the more difficult things. So keeping track of what loop you're on. It's a fairly flat ride, but there are some bridges, as you can see, that go over some of the roads that go under. They give you a little bit of an incline, but if you go train out on the lakefront path or whatever, you'll kind of be used to the incline. So not a lot of incline. So just a really great course for your first triathlon. So you're going to come out of the orange transition. You're going to jump on the bike course. You're going to do 3 loops, and then you're going to go back into transition. And we'll talk a little bit more of what that looks like in a second here. If you're doing the sprint and Olympics, so then that is downtown. So again, the transition area is this orange box, just kind of south of where the river is. Where the yacht club is, if you have ever been down that way. The sprint, both distances, so sprint and Olympic, are going to start the bike on Lakeshore Drive, going north on Lakeshore Drive. And then you're going to come back south on Lakeshore Drive. If you're doing the sprint, once you get to Randolph, you're going to exit off and go back into transition. If you're doing the Olympic, then you are going to continue on and do what the video said. You go lower whacker, you go the busway. So that's going to be, if you look kind of in the bottom left corner of this image, it's a little bit more of a technical course for your second half, and then you'll end up again back in transition at Randolph. So just a couple tips on this course. As was stated in the video, one unique thing about the Chicago Triathlon is for the part on Lakeshore Drive, and I'm actually just going to flip forward here for a second to another picture. For the part on Lakeshore Drive, you are going to ride on the left and pass on the right. So typically we ride on the right, pass on the left, but because of the way that it's structured, and so this picture on the left is the Lakeshore Drive portion. And this is one change from the video is they're used to ride on 2 of the lanes on the northbound side and the southbound side. And now they close off the total southbound side of Lakeshore Drive so that there are no cars. So the people on the right of this picture are going north, away from the city, or away from downtown, and they're going to be riding on their left, passing on their right on the inside towards the cones. Then you do a 180 turn and go south, and then you're going to ride on the left towards that middle median and pass on the right. Now that changes. If you're doing the Olympic, then you're going to go back. Once you hit the Olympic portion, go back to that more traditional right on the right, pass on the left. There will be signs, and you'll hear them talk about it at the course talks, but we like to talk about it early just so you can kind of get it in your mind, that there's a little bit of a difference there. It is on Lakeshore Drive, so anticipating a little bit of bumpiness. Sorry, and I apologize. I have a 2-year-old who's unfortunate. The babysitter was not able to come tonight. So you were gonna just anticipate on Lakeshore Drive. It can be a little bumpy, and there can be some headwinds. So just knowing that. But again, hold on one second. Let me.
I'll chat a little bit while Gillian is dealing with her.
Thank you, Chris.
There. Oh, there you go. You're back. Or I can talk for a little bit here. So basically, the as she mentioned, the most important thing to know about the Olympic distance is that part going north and south on Lakeshore Drive is where the rules have us riding on the left, passing on the right. And then once you get off of Lakeshore Drive and you hit the lower Wacker and busway section, then it flip-flops to the more traditional riding rules of the road, which are where you ride on the right side of the road and then you pass people on the left. So the most important thing, just to kind of, be aware of it, look at the course ahead of time, and then also just be communicative when you're riding around other people. It's always helpful when you let people know, hey, I'm on your left, or passing on your left, or passing on your right. So that's the best way to stay safe. Um, and then also the 180-degree turns, getting used to turning around on your bike if you're going a little bit faster. Sometimes we don't practice those race speeds when we don't have closed roads for training, and then on race day we do. So getting used to shifting your gears is always something to practice as well, and so that when you hit those turns, there's a bunch of different bike handling tips, but the main one is keep your outside leg down as you approach the turn. That lets you lean your bike into the turn. So but it's a very unique urban triathlon bike course with the Bat Cave, as we like to call it, on Lower Wacker. My favorite part of the day.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for jumping
Yeah.
there. All right. So then, kind of how it works again, as we've done different the other clinics, giving a little imagery of how it all works. So we have the transition area right here. As you can see in the image, if you look in the upper left corner of the transition area, you're going to see where it says bike in and bike out. So for the bike specifically, so the swim, you're going to come in again. Look on the opposite side of the transition, down in the left corner, it says swim in. So that's where you're going to come into transition after you've done the swim. The bike rack here, you're going to find your bike rack, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. You're going to find your bike rack. You're going to find your bike, and then you're going to take your bike. You're going to take off your swim stuff. You're going to get your bike stuff on, all things that we're going to talk about during the transition clinic. And then you're going to take your bike to the bike out that is up here on the top corner. So here again, so a couple of the images here. We have the one on the left here. I put this one in here. And Chris, can I jump in here? You might explain these.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. You're gonna go up the prior slide. Yeah. So the image on the left here, for those of you who are thinking about, how do you get on your bike and how you have all your equipment, some of the more competitive athletes, when you look on the picture on the left, you'll notice they have cycling shoes that are clipped on to their pedals. And a lot of competitive athletes will do that to save time. We generally don't recommend that for a first timer. You might see that in the Olympics where they jump on their bike and then they slide their feet into cycling specific shoes. And they might save a couple seconds, but that is much more common in draft legal triathlons where they're trying to catch up to other people and draft off of each other. You certainly can do it, but generally what we recommend is on the picture on the right, you can see these athletes coming out of transition. They already have their cycling shoes on, or they're not even wearing cycling shoes. They're just wearing regular sneakers. And that just makes it a little bit easier to walk around, whether you're walking on the grass or whether you're walking on the pavement. And as you come through these giant inflatable arches, the arch on the left is the bike out, and then the arch on the right is the bike in. And you actually cross over a timing mat as you go through that arch. And then a little bit further ahead, it's kind of off the photos, there's a mount line, and you have to completely cross over that mount line before you can get on your bike. And that's really the most important rule to remember in transition. Actually, two rules. One, you have to have your helmet on and clipped on before you touch your bike, before you grab your bike and start moving it, just as a safety precaution. And then you have to come out of transition and get fully across the mount lines. You're getting onto the official bike course before you're allowed to get on your bike. They can give you a penalty if you get on your bike too early. There'll be volunteers there instructing you. There's officials there as well. But you don't have to go onto your bike right at the mountain line. You can go a little bit further. You can go off to the side, give yourself space, take your time. You don't have to rush it. The last thing you want to do is do all your training and then have trouble feeling confident, getting on your bike and potentially falling over. So just walk, keep it safe, keep it simple. And that's how you get in and out of transition. Then on the way back in, you can see that bike in arch there. There's actually a dismount line right off the photo, right before that, where you have to get off your bike before the dismount line. So you're never allowed to be on your bike or riding your bike when you're in the designated transition area. But there'll be plenty of volunteers. There'll be people kind of guiding you to slow down and whatnot as you're coming in off the bike course as well.
And one little trick on the for Chicago Triathlon, once you get on your bike, then you're going to hit Randolph, which is a little bit of an incline to get up onto Lakeshore Drive. So, and we'll again talk about this when you're when we do the race day one. But it's always good to have your bike not in a super heavy gear as you get on, and then go straight up that little incline. But yes, Chris hit the nail on the head of why I put these pictures for the mount line and the dismount line, and kind of understanding that. So then kind of moving on here, 2 pictures of the race course as you saw the videos. The first one is the sprint and Olympic distance on Lakeshore Drive with that 180-degree turn all the way up at Hollywood. This one on the right, this is a picture of the busway. So you can kind of see how it then changes to your more traditional right on the right, pass on the left for that bike course. The other thing about this right picture is, so as far as spectating goes, we talked about the swim is an amazing spectating. There's no other triathlon where you can spectate the swim like that. The bike is a little bit more difficult. We always say don't even bother like on the sprint distance unless somebody is super ambitious to like get a divvy and like ride up to Lincoln Park or something. But you will see the little bridges here on the right for the Olympic distance. And, if somebody's tracking you with the tracking app, there is a chance they could see you over on those bridges for the Olympic distance. That's that. Okay, the rules. This is also always a big question. And I'd first like to start off by saying, if you put safety first, you're going to be fine. I think when people read the athlete guides, there's a whole section on rules and stuff, and it can get really overwhelming. But that's why, my biggest thing on the bike is just safety first. Taking a couple extra seconds, or whatever off your time, if there's a safer way, in the way of like your distance between people and things like that. So Chris hit upon the number 1 rule, which is your helmet. Whenever you are touching your bike, even the morning of, or when you're taking your bike into transition, if you're touching your bike, have your helmet on your head. That's just a good way to never, to avoid any kind of penalties is if you're touching your bike, have your helmet on your head. Certainly, that's when I get out of the swim and get to my bike, and after I've taken off my swim cap and my goggles, the first thing I do is put my helmet on just so I don't forget that. The other rule that gets asked about a lot is drafting. And I think I heard Chris say there are certain triathlons where drafting is legal. So drafting is when you're riding right behind the person in front of you, and it creates kind of a wind tunnel, and it makes it easier for you to ride. So it's an advantage to the person behind that's at the behind of the other person. That is not, you cannot draft in the Chicago Triathlon. And the rule is that you have to be 3 bike lengths behind the rider in front of you. So I think this picture is just a good visual of what 3 bike lengths looks like. And, obviously the philosophy is that the person in front of you slams on their brakes, that you have enough time that you're not going to hit them. So thinking about that. And so then if we're riding then, and there's no drafting, you have to be 3 bike lengths, then how do you pass somebody if you're ready to pass somebody? So the rule there is that you have 15 seconds to pass another rider. Again, just thinking about safety, and the philosophy here is that you don't want to be riding next to each other for any significant amount of time. So if you're riding behind somebody and you feel like you have the energy and you're ready to pass them, what you're going to do is you're going to come out to the side. You're going to check behind you first just to make sure, much like driving, being a defensive rider, you're going to check behind you and make sure nobody's flying up the side of you. You're going to come out to the side. And then once you start to move towards the pass, you have 15 seconds to break the plane of the rider next to you and go, past them. And then you're going to, once you get in front of them, then pull in front of them. If you're the rider that's being passed, again, this is like safety and, courtesy. If you know somebody is up and getting ready to pass you, you're not going to hit the gas and try to stop them from passing you. You continue riding the way you're riding, and then they'll pass you. And then if you feel like you then have a little burst of energy, then once you get that 3 bike lengths and you're ready to go, you can pass them again. But the idea is here that we just don't want to be riding next to each other. We're not riding too wide. We're trying to ride single file, keeping 3 bike lengths. And if you're going to pass, then you need to be able to do it within a fairly reasonable amount of time in order to be safe and then avoid those penalties. No littering. So whatever you take on the bike, you take off the bike. So we're not, if you bring like a goo, you can't throw it to the side. You want to put it in your pocket or put it in your shorts, whatever it is, until you get off the bike. And then again, I could say safety first. So those are the big ones. If you do, for whatever reason, happen to get a penalty, so as the video said, there will be officials out there on mopeds, and they'll hold up a card and tell you got a penalty. Again, if you go into this with safety first, just remembering distance and passing people as quickly as you can and not littering, you're not going to get a penalty. But if you were, for some reason, the officials will show you a penalty card. And then if it's a penalty, there'll be what's like the penalty box tent that's before the dismount line at transition. And when you come into the bike, you have to stop there and do the penalty, which is like, I don't know what it is for exactly the time. Each one has different times. They could be a 2-minute, or it's like a stop and go where you go into the tent, they check your name off and then go. But again, not something to get worked up around if you just remember safety first, is kind of my advice on that. All right. So the last couple of things I just wanted to hit upon is, so for transition, if you're doing the super sprint, you are going to what's called rack your bike. So take your bike into transition the morning of. So on Saturday morning, you're going to go into transition and rack your bike. You for the super sprint, you can either pick up your packet on Friday down at the Hilton or Saturday morning at the super sprint. And you'll get, a couple weeks ahead of time, you'll get a athlete guide with all of the different times when those things are open. And but you'll have those 2 different options. If you're doing the Sunday races, so sprint or the Olympic, you're going to pick up your packet on either Friday or Saturday at the expo at the Hilton. To rack your bike, you have 2 different options. One is Saturday afternoon. You can go and put your bike on your rack. You can only leave your bike. So no helmets, no bags, no pumps or anything like that. You can just leave your bike on the rack overnight. So this is good if you just don't want to deal with it in the morning, or you're taking public transportation or an Uber. If you don't want to bring your bike down with you on Sunday morning, that's a good option. There's security all night. You're not going to lock it up, or you're just going to put it on the rack, and then it will be there. Or you can bring it Sunday morning during the transition times that are for the Olympic and the sprints. And that's when. And so even if you rack your bike on Saturday for the Olympic or sprint, you still have to be there early before the race to put your stuff in transition. So racking it on Saturday is not going to save you having to go to transition on Sunday. You still have to go into transition. And the last thing I want to cover before I kick it over to Jillian is I'm seeing if I had a picture here, but well, some of these you can see, you'll get your race number. And for the bike, you're going to have a race number for your bike. You're also going to have a race number for your helmet. And then you're going to have a wristband that has your race number. You'll have a race number for the run. And so that's what, when you go into transition, say on Saturday, you're going to have your numbers on your bike and on your wrist, and that's going to match your bike so that nobody can, it's not just that anybody can walk in and say, oh, this is my bike. But you'll get all that information when we talk about race day for the race day clinic and at the expo. So I don't know, were there any broad course questions, Chris, that we should address as a whole, or?
Yeah, nothing too specific. I think you covered a little bit of everything. So, but yeah, if anyone has any specific questions about the bike course, the rules, whatnot, feel free to post them in the chat. I did post a link to the USA Triathlon website where you can find a list of all the kind of more specific rules about triathlon. And there's a couple additional videos on there. So if you have questions or this is your first triathlon, it might be helpful to watch some of those videos as you can become much more familiar with, the nuances of these little things. I know one thing I did want to mention, which we might not have hit on, is there is a Divi division for the super sprint triathlon, and that's where you don't need to have your own bike. And those bikes are set up in transition for you. You just show up with your numbers, your helmet, your shoes. So you come and it's kind of first come, first serve. You pick the Divi bike that you like the best. So we keep it really simple for the super sprint, but we don't have that on the sprint and the Olympic on Sunday. That's only the Saturday race up at Foster. The other thing I know we've had a couple people ask about, and I'm seeing a few more questions, is if you have a mechanical out on the course. And I think we'll segue this to Jillian here in a second. There is a bike support team. It's one of the most unique triathlons in this regard. There are not a lot of races that have this, where there's actually volunteers who are riding bikes all day on the course. And if you have a flat tire, they'll stop and help you. And Jillian from BFF Bikes here will talk about bike equipment here in a second. Her team actually has a tent in transition. It's usually located right by the bike in, bike out area. So if you had some type of issue with your bike as you're running out of the transition area, they can be there to help you. If you have a flat tire, if your chain falls off, some little issue, they can actually help you in transition as well. And they're there in the morning. They're even there, I think, when you drop your bike off on Saturday, the day before. I got a couple other quick questions here. Do you need shoes for the Divi bike? You can wear just regular sneakers for those. There are not clipless shoes for the Divi bike. And there are some time limits for the courses. So you can look in the athlete guide. That'll come out a couple of weeks before the race to tell you specifically how long you can take to complete the course. Every year that could change. The city doesn't let us keep the big highway, Lakeshore Drive, closed forever. So they do have to reopen it at some point, but it's only based on the last finisher. But there are some more details to that. I'll make sure, I'll see if I can copy those in the chat here in a second. And then one final thing, and I'll pass it off to Jillian here. She'll talk about the different types of bikes and equipment. We do have a partner, Unlimited Biking, which you can find on the website. They have a bike rental option. So you can pick what type of bike you want, and you can rent it from the race. And there's a whole schedule of where and when you can pick it up and all that good stuff. So if you're wondering about bike rentals, there is an official partner for that as well. And there's some local shops that you can rent bikes from as well. With that said, I think we'll turn it over to Jillian, who's done the triathlon many times herself and been at the race providing support. And she runs the BFF Bikes bike shop in Chicago, which they also do group rides, they do fix a flat clinics and all that good stuff. So I think Jillian, if you're ready, we'll turn it over to you to tell us a little bit more about what types of bikes you can use. So I'll turn it over to
Sure.
Jillian.
Sure. Great. Hi, everybody. Yeah, just to go cover, as Chris mentioned, we will be in the transition area on Saturday when you drop your bike off, if you decide to drop your bike off early. And we'll also be there first thing on Sunday morning to address any issues that you might have. Of course, we can't do full tune-ups or anything like that and in transition, but we can usually solve some of the issues that come up. Yeah, so some people, wonder, oh, I have a hybrid, is it okay to do, triathlon? First of all, yes, you can do a triathlon in any bike you might have. It's just when you start doing some longer distances, or you decide, oh, I really like this, I may want to upgrade. But being your first, you can ride whichever bike you have. I just came back from Nashville and did a triathlon there, and saw lots of different bikes on the course of the Olympic. This was just a picture of the different types of bikes that you might have: the mountain, the hybrid, more of a relaxed hybrid, a road bike, and the tri-bike is the most aggressive, faster bike out there. I put a picture of aero bars on there. So if you do have a road bike, there's an option to put like a clip-on aero bars onto your road bike. If you want to get a little bit more what they call aero, which means that you're just going to have less of your body pushing against the wind. So you'll might be going a little bit faster with less power, or less pedaling. The other thing I wanted to mention in transition, what we find is if you do have the fourth bike there, the road bike, make sure that you have they have like little plugs in the end of the drop bar. If you do have a road bike, just make sure those plugs are in there. We will have extra in transition, but it would be helpful if you make sure yours are there. Yeah, I think that's a bit about the types of bikes. And then if you want to go to the next slide, I just put a few kind of accessories, especially if you think you're going to be doing the Olympic, or if you are if you are doing the Olympic distance. These are accessories that I would think would be most necessary. The first one is bottle cages and bottles. If you look at your bike, you may see some grommets on your bike. And if you don't have a bottle cage, you might want to think about getting a bottle cage. I know some of you may not, have practice like reaching down and getting the bottle while you're riding, but that's a good thing if you are, especially if you're doing the Olympic, to practice doing that now. So if you can coast your bike, reach down and grab the bottle when you're in a safe area, and just keep trying that. That's a good thing to have under your belt. Because you don't, especially if it gets hot out, you don't want to be riding, an hour and a half or 2 hours without any hydration, especially if you want to, especially going into the run. It's super important to keep hydrated. I'm sure you guys are going to go into nutrition at some point, but and then the next thing is they call it like a bento box, and this actually sits on your top bar and is reachable as you're riding. You can put little nutrition in there, gels or a bar or something. Again, not maybe as important if you're doing some of the shorter distances, but maybe a little bit more important if you're doing the longer distance. The next thing is a floor pump. And just is just more important um, as you're training or doing some longer bike rides. You should be airing up your tires every um, 2 to 3 days, but at the minimum every week, because the tube inside the tire is permeable, so air actually does escape. So your tire will lose what they call air pressure over time, and it's just helpful to have a fully aired up tire. It'll run smoother on the road. The last thing, not absolutely necessary, but that there's a saddle there, and that's got in that little bag is a fix a flat kit, which is a tube and tire levers. I think we're going to go on to the next slide at some point. Yeah. So that's where you carry things to fix your flat with. And, even so while you're training, even if you don't know how to use those things, it's nice to have that. Because you might pass somebody that does know how to at least use it, and you have the things to fix your own flat at least. So this slide is just talking about we do have fix a flat classes on the second Monday of every month. And you guys are all welcome to join. It's $15. You can sign up at our website. You get a free pair of tire levers, which you'll learn how to use at the class. The tire levers are on the top right, those orange, sorry, those green those green things on the top right corner of the picture there. Yeah, so next thing, bike helmet. So the triathlon does check to make sure that your helmets are CPSC certified, which is the standard in the US. The US uses for helmet safety. So they'll go through transition while you're in the water and make sure that your helmet does have that stamp on it. I've seen different things over the years where someone's helmet is certified in a different country, or it's I don't know, a ski helmet, or I don't know, some other helmet that doesn't have that certification in it. So just make sure you look at your helmet. Just on that topic also, if your helmet is more than 5 years old, just go out and buy yourself a new one. They do degrade over time, and you just don't want to take that risk of falling and your helmet, the styrofoam, is not as solid as it used to be. And then the rest of the points here are regarding fitting the helmet. The top picture on the right is where the helmet should sit on top of your head. So I know some people will put the helmet on and it kind of sits up a little bit, but it should actually sit just two fingers above your brow. And then when it's on and you've tightened it, make sure it's tightened down. You should be able to shake your head, and it shouldn't feel loose. It should feel pretty solid, even without the strap on. The strap is just a secondary safety measure that the helmet doesn't fall off. So it should be pretty, not tight where you're getting a headache, but tight enough that it doesn't come off your head if you shake it. Yeah, there are, different styles of helmet. Find one that's comfortable for you. And there's cheaper ones that are, $50, and those are more kind of universal sizing. And then you could spend a little more, like 70 to 100, and you can get ones that have specific sizing, small, medium, and large. And those tend to feel a little bit more comfortable and maybe a little bit lighter with some more vents in the top. It'll keep you cooler during the ride. Yeah, so that's that. And bike maintenance. So there are things that you can do yourself now as you're training and riding your bike that will help protect your bike in the future and keep your bike well maintained and reduce wear on some of the components and pieces of your bike. Um, so cleaning it after each ride, especially, I don't know if you're all here in the city, but we've had a lot of rain today. So when you're riding in that sort of kind of wet environment, the grit and the grime tends to stick to your chain and your cassette and all that stuff. And all those little grimy, gritty parts, if they're left on your bike and you keep riding it with the grit and the grime, it eventually wears out all those little pieces that pivot and move and help keep your bike running smoothly. And then, if you take your bike in for that tune-up, you'll end up having to spend a little more money because the parts are a little bit worn down. Um, uh, so cleaning your bike is something you can do. I sometimes just grab an old water bottle and put some warm water in it or just some water in it and a little bit of dish soap, shake it up, and then like if you don't have anywhere to wash it, just at least kind of do that and like spray it on there and then just get a little brush and just brush it down and then get a clean water bottle of water and just splash it and just rinse off all the soap. And then if you don't have a bottle of chain lube, that is kind of an elixir for your bike and keeping your chain and everything running well. Each of those little pivot points on the chain moves and has each of them moves, so the having a little bit of lubricant on those little pivot points just help keep the chain moving smoothly and help your shifting run smoothly. So get yourself a little bottle of lubricant for your chain. There's usually like $10 or $12. Air pressure, I talked about that a little bit with the air pump. And again, you don't have to buy like that huge floor pump like I showed you. You can use a small hand pump, but if you're doing it often enough, it is like nice to have that floor pump because the little tiny pumps are just a little bit harder to use. But yeah, and if all of this doesn't make sense, and you don't know how to find your air pressure on your bike, or if you don't know how to pump your tires up, feel free to drop by. You can drop by here or a store that's close to you, and I'm sure they will be more than be happy to show you how to pump your own tires up. So the next thing is just be aware of some of the things that sounds that your bike is making while you ride it. It shouldn't be click clacking all the time. It should be running fairly smooth. You should hear, like, when you change gears, you should hear it, but other than that, it should be fairly silent. If you hear a lot of noise and clicking, clacking, then it may need a tune-up. So that leads me to my last point here. Get your bike tuned up now. Bring it in. You can get a full tune-up. You can get a safety check, but at least get someone to look at it just to make sure it's safe. Make sure that just to see if there's anything that the bike needs in order for it to run a little bit more smoothly. And I would say also, if you buy a bike from like a Walmart or online or something, and they say it's like, it comes fully assembled, just bring the bike in, spend $50 to your local bike store, have them spend like 20-30 minutes on it, just making sure all those bolts and everything are all tightened down, because I guarantee you someone from Walmart is not a professional bike mechanic, and it may look fine, but I definitely wouldn't ride it without having somebody professionally look at it. And I'm more than happy to have anybody drop by the store and just say you're with the First Timers program. If you have any questions about any of this stuff, I'm happy to answer the questions. Even if you want me to look at your bike, there's no charge for that. And then if there is any work that needs to be done, we'll give you 10% off the labor and the parts. So happy to help whoever needs it.
Yeah, Jillian, I saw a couple of questions I thought maybe you could answer.
Yeah.
One question was, how often should you lube your chain? And
If
how-
Yeah, so if you are washing it off and rinsing it off, you should always follow that with a little bit of lube. Um, Otherwise, I would try to do at least once a month, for sure.
Perfect. Yeah, and I think the other question was, what's kind of the range for a tune-up as far as pricing?
Yeah, so for us, everyone's different and it depends on where you're located, but we have like a semi-annual tune at that runs about $110 and then an annual tune that runs about $160.
And can they just bring it in, or should they call ahead of time?
They can just bring it in and yeah, just bring it in.
Okay, awesome. I think those were some of the maintenance questions I saw.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah, thank you, Jillian. And I will plug BFF Bikes. They are wonderful. Go in, tell them you're a first timer. They have also supported our kids program. I can't even say how much. So they are a wonderful shop. And I think even at the end, we'll talk about some of the group rides and other events that they have. So definitely check out their website because there's always things going on, even after the triathlon winter, indoor riding and runs and stuff. So just stop on by and check them out if you haven't. And actually, this might be a good, Jillian, where are you guys located?
Oh yeah, we're in Bucktown. So we're at Damon and Dickens, which is it's between like Webster and Armitage are the two big cross streets, the two big east-west cross streets. And actually we also have a 9094 highway exit on an off ramp, which is about a quarter or a half a mile. So even if you are a little bit farther, it's very easy to get to and with the highway as well.
Awesome. Perfect. All right. Well, I think we will kick it over to Chris to talk about bike training.
Yeah. Thank you, Jillian. And yeah, I'll mention actually one thing. I know I'm answering questions in the chat that relates and kind of segues to this because it's one of my tips here. Tip number 7: tune up your bike early. So if people are asking about tune-ups and whatnot, I can't recommend getting to bike shops early. The Chicago Triathlon is one of the world's largest triathlons, so local bike shops get pretty busy in the week or two, especially before the race. So plan to get a tune-up. I usually recommend a couple months before so you can train on your bike in good working condition. But in terms of bike training, I want to give you guys a couple tips, things that you can practice as you build up towards the Chicago Triathlon, especially for getting used to potentially running after cycling is a new experience for most people. So one of my first tips is simply ride with higher cadences, and the cadence is just how fast your legs are spinning. So getting your legs to spin a little bit quicker, shifting into potentially an easier gear so you're not mashing the pedals at a low cadence. Your feet might be moving at 1 pedal stroke per second at a low cadence, but you want to try to do about, if you're counting both legs, 3 steps, so to speak, per second. So that's 180 beats a minute, if you want to think of it that way, if you're counting both legs. And the reason for that is simply because that is a typical cadence that you will run at after biking. So if you're grinding and going at a real low cadence, then when you get off the bike, your muscles are going to be used to that low cadence. and it'll be a little bit harder to run. So simply get used to doing higher cadences. 90 to 100 RPMs are good cadences to try to get yourself to do. And you can get a little sensor on your bike if you want to do it, or go to a spin class. They always have cadence sensors on spin bikes to see that. And then with that, goes hand in hand, running after cycling. Get your body used to doing that at least once or twice. Sometimes if you pedal really hard on the pedals, your feet actually swell up a little bit. And when you get off the bike, you'll feel your feet being heavy. So that's what we call a brick run. It's an acronym, actually, BR for bike run, and then ick for icky, how your legs feel when you're running after cycling. But it's also the idea of just stacking workouts like bricks. So doing one discipline immediately after the other. We also recommend, focusing on just building good leg strength. You can do that in a number of different ways. On the bike, people use power sensors, and we'll get really precise about, doing intervals and harder efforts for certain amounts of time. But just doing variety, that is really the key. Doing some high resistance, doing some higher cadences, and just let your body adapt. So you're used to, whether you hit hills, downhills, your body is used to the cadence and the resistance that you're going to experience on race day. We do also recommend trying to, at least once in your training, do what we like to call an over distance bike ride. Like, do a bike ride that's a little bit more potentially than the distance on race day, just so that you're used to being in the saddle for that amount of time. But also so that when you get to race day, just doing that bike is not going to be the longest bike ride of your life. You've done it before, so that'll make you more ready for being able to run afterwards. If you're riding in the city, we do recommend riding in bike lanes, but in group rides especially, so that you can get used to riding around other people, so you don't feel nervous riding around other people. I think BFF Bikes, we mentioned, they have beginner-friendly group rides every other week on Sundays at their bike shop. So if you've never ridden with a group before, those are really some of the best local rides to join to start to get used to just riding around other people, and get comfortable with that. Also, what we call bike handling skills, getting familiar with reaching down for your water bottle, getting familiar with doing turns and slowing down and braking and mounting and dismounting your bike. There's a lot of local triathlon groups and bike clubs that will do bike handling skills. And those are good to practice just to get comfortable on your bike. And then, like I mentioned, tune up the bike early. Plan to get a tune up. I usually recommend actually getting a tune up at the beginning of the season, just so that your bike is in good working order and it's safe, and it's, not going to have any issues as you start your training journey through the summer. So this time of year right now is actually one of the perfect times to schedule that tune up. And that way you can be using the bike in good working order. And then if you want to do another tune up right before race day, or just a quick safety checkup, that's a good time to do that, is usually about a month before the race itself. Also practice shifting gears. I know a lot of people in the city and in Chicago, it's pretty flat. So we tend to just be in one gear for a long period of time. We don't get used to shifting your gears. But on race day, guess what? Lakeshore Drive does have some ups and downs to it. And we do have some strong winds off the lakefront. So you can be going very fast in one direction and a lot slower in the other. So practice shifting your gears. Make sure your gears are working. Make sure your bike is tuned up for that reason. And that's a pretty important part of Chicago, because people get a little surprised sometimes when they realize going over the Chicago River on Lakeshore Drive is actually almost like a 4 or 5 story hill. It's a pretty big hill right at the start of the race and the finish. Also, I highly recommend, if you do get the chance, learn to fix a flat tire. Almost every local bike shop, BFF included, they have fix a flat clinics every so often. Make sure you have the tools that you need to fix a flat tire, just in case that happens. There's different things you can use. Newer bikes now have sealant, which is kind of like a run flat technology. So you might not have to worry about ever having a flat tire, but it's always good to, worst case scenario, have the tools you need and to be at least loosely familiar with how to fix a flat tire. But like I mentioned, at the Chicago Tri, we are a little bit spoiled. We have our bike support crew that will ride up and down. So if you have trouble, you just pull off the side of the road, and within a couple of minutes, you'll have another bike support crew person coming by to help you out. So those are really some of the main tips in incorporating into your bike training journey. And then the last one I wanted to mention is one
Oh,
of
and
our
Chris,
partners. Oh, go ahead. Yep.
I'm sorry, before you jump, because I know we're segueing with that. One question that was asked is during long rides, what pace should athletes be riding at? Should it be race pace or easier pace?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think especially as you do your first long ride, you don't want to just kind of go at that race pace intensity. You want to build your endurance by going at a lower intensity first. There's a lot of scientific reasons behind it. We generally now you'll see a lot of people talk about zone 2 training or lower heart rate training. That actually allows your body to build called the mitochondrial density, the ability of your muscles to actually generate and create more energy. And if you just go hard all the time, you might not get that training benefit. So the first time you go longer, go easier. And then maybe the second or third time, then you know what to expect. Then you can start building up to doing race pace intensities in shorter durations. But yeah, generally don't just try to go race pace all the time and build distance first, then do the race pace efforts. But that's a great question for sure. Um, and then in terms of training, that was going to be my good segue. Indoor training. So a lot of times if people are nervous about riding outdoors or, just finding a place where you can go at race pace is hard outdoors, especially in a city environment. There's not a lot of safe places to do that, right? The Lakefront Trail might have some stretches where you can go for a couple minutes at a time, but you've got dogs, you've got people, pedestrians, you've got stoplights on city streets. So what becomes popular as people really get into the sport more is doing more indoor training, whether it's going to a spin class or using an indoor bike, a stand-up Peloton bike or whatnot. But there's also some triathlon specific options and cycling kind of racing performance focused options. And one of our partners is MyWhoosh, which is a virtual cycling platform. So if you have a bike, you can get what's called a trainer to put your bike on and ride your bike, the equipment you're going to use on race day, indoors before the race. And that way you can really practice those race pace efforts. And one of the cool things that we have, if you're on the email list, if you're signed up for the Tri, we have literally Olympic medalists that have put together training plans and are leading live coached workouts. We just had one with Johnny Brownlee, Olympic medalist, gold medalist, multiple time medalist. And we have more rides coming. And you can log into this app. Actually, yeah, if we go to the next slide, the virtual cycling apps are basically just create virtual replicas of outdoor riding areas. And it's kind of like a video game. You can see all your data and metrics. You can ride, you can interact with other people. It's very social. So there's a lot of cool things to it. These apps have really gotten developed to the point where it's almost like a flight simulator. It's a very comprehensive tool that can do pretty much anything. And we actually have full training plans, full triathlon training plans built into MyWhoosh. So they have a beginner plan, they have an Olympic distance plan, everything from 6 weeks up to 20 weeks. So you can just follow a full training plan. It'll tell you when to swim, bike, and run. And these workouts will have intervals. It'll tell you how hard to go and for how long to kind of build you up progressively. And then there's also live coached rides. We're actually, it's not announced yet, but we're actually going to start scheduling more with some of our local coaches. So you might see me helping to lead a virtual ride on MyWhoosh soon, where you'll have coaches that you can interact with. You can ask questions. And that's a great way to learn is by getting on those. With MyWhoosh, by the way, if you want to try the app out, it is completely free. So it's a really unique app. It's not like Zwift and others that you have to pay for a membership to use. This app is completely free. It is a little graphic intensive though. So if you have an older phone, you might not be able to run the app on your phone. But if you have an iPhone, it works great on any iPhone pretty much in the last 5 years. Also like Apple TV or any kind of computer that has like graphics or higher performance, we might call it gaming PC. You can use a tablet, you can use a phone, you can use a computer. It's available on almost every platform out there. And this website link we have here posted is mywhooshinfo.com. And without having to download the app, you can look and see all the different training plans that are available, all the different workouts that are available, the schedule of live coached rides. So if you just want to kind of peruse a little bit before you download and install the app, go to that website, mywhooshinfo.com. And there's tutorials on the main website as well, but definitely give that a look. And if you're on the email list for the Chicago Tri, you'll get those invites to those live coached events that we're doing. So just keep staying tuned, and yeah, maybe I'll see you on the virtual roads in training. And then actually, if you
And
want
Chris,
to try my whoosh, oh, go ahead, Gillian.
No, finish up, and then I've got a couple of questions for you off of all of that.
Yeah, to kind of wrap up as well, this the My Whoosh platform, we're actually going to try to set it up at the next triathlon social that Jillian hosts at BFF Bikes. So they have one coming up here on Friday, June 20th, just kind of a very beginner friendly social hour, food, drinks, people talking about bikes and triathlon. So we'll have beer, we'll have bikes, we'll maybe have My Whoosh up on the screen. But I know Jillian's got some great topics lined up where we'll be looking at different types of bikes. We'll be talking a lot about pedal systems. I know that's what people have a lot of questions about, is like, do I need, flat pedals and just wear sneakers, or do I want to upgrade and kind of get like a clipless where you clip into the pedals with cycling specific shoes? So we'll talk about all the different options for that. And then Jillian always has some good discounts on gear and Garmin devices. I know that was a question somebody had about, can you have a speedometer on your bike? Can you have a screen? Yes, you can have a bike computer. You can have a GPS. You can have all that information. People have turn-by-turn directions on their Garmin's, but you won't need that for the Chicago Tri. You just follow the roads that are closed for us. But yeah, these are great monthly events that Jillian hosts. I don't know, Jillian, if you have anything else to mention about these. I know if you go on the BFF website, you can just go under the events calendar and you can RSVP there to let her know if you're coming. And that way she usually brings a whole bunch of beer and food. So it helps us to know a head count. But I like going to these myself because it's just a fun networking opportunity. You get to meet other athletes from all different triathlon clubs and communities across Chicago. So definitely take advantage of this one coming up here pretty soon. But Jillian, do you have anything else to add with that?
No, that all sounds pretty good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I
Chris,
think we
one
have
question that did come up is what are some tips for dealing with the Chicago winds on Lakeshore Drive or during training?
Yeah, I see that. So yeah, the main thing is get used to it. So if you get a chance to ride, I used to, when I was doing a training for one of my first triathlons that I knew was going to have windy conditions and hilly conditions. I just had the mantra and kind of like the hashtag in my head of more headwind. Like I wanted to embrace it. If I could deal with it in training, then race day will feel easier in comparison. But there are also some things that you can do. So when the wind gets really strong, the major thing is just make sure you're using the gears on your bike, shift into an easier gear and keep your cadence higher. A lot of people struggle in the wind when they don't shift their gears and they just grind their way into the headwind. And that really wears you down. That creates muscular fatigue. This is an aerobic sport. An endurance sport is very aerobic. So keep the cadence light, and that's the biggest tip. There's also some gear things you can do, like trying to get more aerodynamic. Some people will get an aerodynamic helmet with fewer vents, and that's more, it'll be faster in the wind. And just getting lower. If you have a bike with the drop style handlebars, getting on those drops and just getting your body lower and more aerodynamic makes a big difference when the wind is really, really strong. So those would probably be my biggest tips for that. Cool. And I think we have,
Awesome.
yeah, I know we have some of these community events posted. We've posted this before, I think. This is some of our swimming specific links, but the main one I would call out, actually a couple of them on here. For cycling, the BFF Bikes rides that we mentioned, they do a lot of events on a regular basis. There's other clinics coming up, like our swim clinics. The Chicago Tri Club, though, I'll make another shout out to them. They are a big social club in the Chicagoland area, and they do weekly rides as well. They have training rides that you can join with other triathletes. So those two would be the main ones if you're looking for places to kind of get involved with cycling in general. Another general resource is chicagogrouprides.com. and I'll put that in the chat. That's where a lot of cycling groups post where they do bike rides from bike shops and whatnot. Unfortunately, a lot of those are not triathlon bike friendly. Like if you have a time trial bike with the aero bars, it's a little harder to move your hands and shift and brake and react. So they just want you having a regular road bike for those. And that's why we don't have that link necessarily on this slide.
Yeah, and kind of off of that, as somebody who about 10 years ago was totally new to biking and such, I highly recommend, the group rides. And I know, and Jillian, you can speak to this if people have questions. BFX, has beginner rides. So if you've never ridden with a group, I mean, it's a great place to go, no pressure. So highly recommend group rides as a good place if you're newer to cycling.
Cool. All right. I can take this one. I see you've got your hands full there. So if you guys do have any other questions, these are the QR codes we mentioned earlier. So if you aren't in the Facebook group, you can join that. The Live Grit website has all the clinics, the schedule of upcoming clinics on it. And then the new Strava club that Supertri just created is where we're also posting a lot of community events and information. So if you want to be in the loop, Strava is also a really good resource for seeing where people go and train. People who are in that group, show their activities, and you can find where other people go cycling across the Chicago area. Or if you're not in Chicago, if you're somewhere else, another city, that group is a great place where you can just see where people go and train. But if you have any questions, let us know. Gillian's got her email here. I don't think we have the BFF one, but we can add the BFF one in the chat. And if you have any questions, I'm the local community manager for Supertri and the Chicago Triathlon. Feel free to reach out to me. If you're involved in a Chicago club or community, you want to get involved in a charity or corporate challenge, any program that we have that you have questions about, feel free to shoot me a note. And then, like we mentioned, the Facebook and the Strava groups, we have the actual links posted down here in the chat as well. And if you do want to get a hold of Jillian at BFF Bikes, it's an easy email address to remember. It's just jillian@bffbikes.com. So you can shoot her an email, or if you go on their website, you can find their main contact address as well. I think it's just hello@bffbikes.com.
I just added it to the chat.
Yep, I see it there. Cool, awesome, thank you. Cool. All right, I think that's pretty much it. So if anyone does have any other questions, we'll stay on here for a little bit. I'll answer any questions in the chat, or you can unmute yourself. But yeah, the next clinic is coming up here, June 25th. So a couple more weeks away, we'll be talking about the run. So we did the swim, now we did the bike, and now the run is next.
Yes, and I think Coach Joy also will add in a little bit about nutrition and hydration there as well. So, and Coach Joy will be joining us to talk about it. So we'll see everybody in a couple of weeks.
Thank you.